The officer's words still echo in my mind 23 years later. Don't go inside. Trust me. He was standing there, blocking our path to the house, his face pale and drawn. But my father, he just laughed. That arrogant laugh I knew so well. He shook his head like the officer was some rookie who didn't know better, and pushed that door open anyway. What I'm about to tell you sounds impossible, but I have the evidence to prove every word. That night wasn't what it seemed. Nothing about it was what it seemed. And the truth I uncovered after 23 years of searching will show you just how deep corruption can go and how far some people will go to bury their secrets. My name is Sarah, and this is the story of how I lost 2 men in one night and spent over 2 decades uncovering the truth that everyone wanted buried. It started 3 weeks ago when I received a package with no return address. Inside was my father's old police badge and a single photograph I'd never seen before. On the back, someone had written, he knew. They all knew. Let me take you back to October 15th, 2001. I was 24, newly married to Marcus, and we were visiting my father for his birthday. Dad had been a detective for 30 years, retired just 6 months earlier. He was proud, stubborn, and convinced he could handle anything life threw at him. We'd driven up to visit him at his cabin in Pine Ridge, a place he bought to get away from all the madness, as he put it. But when we arrived that evening, something was wrong. There were police cars everywhere, their red and blue lights cutting through the darkness like warning signals. Officer Williams approached us as we got out of the car. He was young, maybe mid-20s, and he looked like he'd seen a ghost. "Mr. Henderson," he said to my father, "you can't go in there. The scene isn't secure yet." But my father just showed his badge. "I'm Detective Henderson, retired. This is my property." "Sir, please," Williams insisted, stepping directly in front of the door. His voice was shaking. "Don't go inside. Trust me." That's when my father laughed. That dismissive sound that meant he thought someone was being ridiculous. "Son, I've seen more crime scenes than you've had hot dinners. Whatever's in there, I can handle it." He pushed past Williams and opened the door. Marcus and I waited outside, but we could hear my father moving around inside, his footsteps echoing through the empty rooms. Then we heard it, a sound I'll never forget, like something heavy falling, followed by a crash. Then silence. "Dad!" I called out. Nothing. Marcus went in after him. "Sarah, call 911, he shouted from somewhere inside the house. Those were the last words I ever heard him say. I stood there for what felt like hours, but it was probably only minutes, screaming for both of them. Officer Williams had disappeared. The other officers seemed frozen, just standing around their cars like they were waiting for something. When the backup finally arrived, they found Marcus unconscious in the basement. He was rushed to the hospital but never woke up. The doctors said it was some kind of neurological trauma, but they couldn't explain what had caused it. My father was never found. The official report said he'd probably wandered off, maybe had a stroke or heart attack somewhere in the woods. They searched for weeks but found nothing. The case was quietly closed after 6 months. But I never stopped looking for answers. For 23 years, I dug through police records, interviewed anyone who would talk, and slowly pieced together the truth. What I discovered was a conspiracy that went straight to the top of the Pine Ridge Police Department. 3 weeks ago, when I received that package, I finally got the breakthrough I needed. The photograph showed my father shaking hands with Vincent Caro, a man who'd been running an underground trafficking operation out of that very cabin. My father wasn't just investigating Caro. He was working with him. The truth hit me like a physical blow. My father hadn't bought that cabin to retire peacefully. He bought it because it was the perfect location for Caro operation, isolated, with easy access to the highway, and protected by a corrupt cop. But something had gone wrong that night. Someone had tipped off the FBI, and they were closing in. Officer Williams wasn't there to secure a crime scene. He was there to clean up evidence before the feds arrived. When Williams warned my father not to go inside, he was trying to save him from walking into his own trap. Inside that house were all the records, the money, the evidence that would destroy not just my father's reputation, but his freedom. My father went inside anyway, probably thinking he could destroy the evidence himself. But Caro was already there waiting. Last week, I drove back to Pine Ridge. The cabin had been abandoned for years, but I knew where to look. In the basement, behind a false wall, I found them. Boxes and boxes of evidence. Financial records, photographs, names, dates, everything. And at the bottom of the last box, I found my father's wallet and his gun, both covered in blood that had long since dried to a rust-colored stain. I also found a letter addressed to me, in my father's handwriting. Sarah, if you're reading this, then I'm probably dead, and you spent years looking for answers I never wanted you to find. I got in too deep with the wrong people. I thought I could control the situation, but Caro is smarter and more ruthless than I gave him credit for. Marcus followed me down here tonight, and I'm afraid Caro men got to him too. I'm sorry, sweetheart. I'm so sorry for everything. The man you called Officer Williams isn't a real cop. His name is Danny Caro, Vincent's son. Everything was planned. They needed my father to walk into that house so they could eliminate him quietly without raising suspicions. But they hadn't counted on Marcus coming after him. The letter explained everything. Vincent Caro had been using my father for years, but when the heat got too intense, my father became a liability. The fake crime scene, the corrupt officers, Williams's warning, it was all theater designed to make my father's disappearance look like an accident. But Marcus had complicated their plan. When he went into the house and found my father's body, they couldn't just let him walk away. So they used some kind of drug that caused brain damage, making it look like a medical emergency rather than an assault. Yesterday, I walked into the FBI field office in Denver with all the evidence. They confirmed what I'd suspected. Vincent Caro had been on their most wanted list for 20 years. Danny Caro had been impersonating a police officer and was connected to at least 7 other disappearances. This morning, I got the call I'd been waiting for. Both Vincent and Danny Caro were arrested during a coordinated raid. They found my father's remains on Vincent's property, along with evidence connecting them to dozens of other crimes. The arrogance that killed my father was the same arrogance that preserved the evidence of his murder. Vincent Caro kept everything. Every document, every photograph, every piece of proof of his crimes, because he never thought anyone would be smart enough or persistent enough to find it. He was wrong. Marcus died 3 years ago, never having regained consciousness. But before he passed, I would sit by his hospital bed and tell him everything I'd discovered, every lead I'd followed, every dead end I'd hit. I like to think he heard me. I like to think he knew I never gave up. Justice doesn't always come quickly, but it does come. My father made terrible choices, but he didn't deserve to die for them. And Marcus, he was just trying to help someone he loved. The truth has a way of surfacing, no matter how deep you try to bury it. Sometimes it takes 23 years, but it always finds a way. Officer Williams, Danny Caro, is facing life in prison without parole. His father, Vincent, will likely die behind bars. The corrupt officers who helped cover up the crime are being investigated, and several have already been arrested. But the story doesn't end there. Because what I discovered in those final boxes changed everything I thought I knew about my family. Hidden beneath my father's confession was another letter, this one from my mother, who had died when I was 12. I always believed she died in a car accident. The letter told a different story entirely. My darling Sarah, it read, "If you're reading this, then David has finally been caught, and you've discovered the truth about Pine Ridge. I need you to know that I didn't die in an accident. Your father has been involved with dangerous people for years, and when I threatened to expose him, Vincent Caro made sure I could never talk." My hands were shaking as I read those words. My mother had known about the trafficking operation. She tried to stop it, and it had cost her her life. The letter explained how she discovered evidence of my father's involvement with Caro Network. Financial records hidden in our basement at home. Strange phone calls at all hours. Men coming to our house who made her uncomfortable. When she confronted my father, he begged her to stay quiet, claiming he was trying to get out but needed more time. "I made copies of everything," the letter continued. "If something happens to me, look in the old oak tree behind our house, the one with your initials carved in it. The evidence is there, sealed in a waterproof container." I drove straight back to my childhood home. The current owners were kind enough to let me examine the tree when I explained I was looking for something my deceased mother had left. 23 years later, the container was still there. Inside were photographs, bank statements, and recorded conversations that painted a horrifying picture. My father hadn't just been a corrupt cop taking bribes. He'd been actively recruiting young women for Caro trafficking ring. My mother had recorded several phone conversations where he was discussing new inventory and delivery schedules. But the most devastating discovery was a recording from the night before my mother's supposed accident. I could hear her voice, terrified but determined. "David, I won't let you destroy any more lives. Tomorrow morning, I'm taking everything to the FBI." My father's response chilled me to the bone. "Rebecca, you don't understand what you're doing. These people don't negotiate. If you try to expose this, they'll kill you. And then they'll come for Sarah. Then we take Sarah and we run," my mother had replied. "We start over somewhere safe." "There is nowhere safe from Vincent Caro," my father said. "I'm sorry, Rebecca. I'm so sorry." The recording ended there, but I found police photos from the accident scene. My mother's car had gone off the road at exactly the same curve where 2 other accidents had occurred, both involving people who'd crossed Vincent Caro. I spent the next week reviewing every case file I could access. The pattern was undeniable. Anyone who tried to expose or leave Caro operation ended up dead, and my father had helped cover up every single murder. The FBI agent handling my case, Special Agent Martinez, confirmed my worst fears when I brought her this new evidence. "Your mother contacted our office the day before she died," Martinez told me. "She was scheduled to meet with us that morning to discuss a trafficking operation in Pine Ridge. When she didn't show up, we assumed she'd gotten cold feet. Now we know why she never made it." Martinez also revealed something that made my blood run cold. "We've been investigating this network for 15 years, Sarah. Your father wasn't just involved, he was Caro's right-hand man. We estimate that over the years, they trafficked more than 200 women and girls. Many of them were never seen again. 200 lives. My father had helped destroy 200 lives. But there was more. Martinez showed me surveillance footage from the night Marcus and my father disappeared. The cameras had captured everything. In the grainy black and white video, I watched my father enter the cabin, followed minutes later by Marcus. But what I saw next made me physically sick. Vincent Caro emerged from the back of the house, dragging my father's unconscious body. He threw him into the trunk of a car and drove away. Marcus appeared at the basement door, clearly looking for my father. That's when Danny Caro appeared behind him with some kind of injection device. Marcus collapsed immediately. "They didn't kill your husband right away," Martinez explained. "The drug they used causes progressive brain damage over time. It was meant to look like a medical condition, not an assault. Your husband was essentially murdered in slow motion. I had to excuse myself to vomit. 23 years of believing Marcus had simply been in the wrong place at the wrong time, when the truth was he'd been deliberately poisoned and left to die slowly in a hospital bed." The final piece of evidence came from Vincent Caro himself. After his arrest, he agreed to cooperate in exchange for avoiding the death penalty. During his confession, he revealed the location of 17 burial sites across 3 states. My father's remains were found at the first site Martinez's team excavated. But what they found with him was even worse: the remains of 6 young women, all between the ages of 16 and 22. Each had been reported missing over the years, but their cases had been mishandled or ignored by corrupt police departments. One of them was Jessica Morrison, a 19-year-old college student who'd gone missing just 3 months before my mother's death. According to Caro's confession, Jessica had escaped from the trafficking operation and made it to our house, begging my mother for help. My mother had hidden Jessica in our basement and was planning to take her to the FBI along with all the evidence she'd gathered. But my father discovered Jessica there and called Caro. "Your mother tried to stop us from taking the girl back," Caro told the investigators. "She said she'd rather die than let us hurt another child. So we arranged for her to get her wish. Jessica was murdered that same night. My mother died the next morning." The scope of the conspiracy was staggering. Over 2 decades, 12 police officers, 3 judges, and a district attorney had been on Caro payroll. They'd covered up murders, destroyed evidence, and silenced witnesses. My father had been the architect of the entire cover-up operation. During the trial, more victims came forward. Women who'd escaped, families who'd never gotten answers about their missing daughters, survivors who'd been too traumatized or too afraid to speak up before. One survivor, Maria Santos, testified that my father had personally delivered her to Caro when she was 17 years old. He told her she was being arrested for prostitution, but instead of taking her to jail, He'd driven her to a warehouse where she was held for 3 years. Detective Henderson wasn't just corrupt, Maria said during her testimony. He was evil. He looked me in the eye and told me no one would ever look for me because I was just another runaway. He said my family probably didn't even want me back. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours. Vincent Caro received life without parole. Danny Caro got the same sentence. The corrupt officers received sentences ranging from 25 years to life. But justice for the dead felt hollow. My mother, Marcus, Jessica, and all those other young women were still gone. All the convictions in the world couldn't bring them back. As for me, I finally have the closure I've been searching for, but it came at a price I never expected to pay. My father wasn't a hero, and he wasn't just a flawed man who made bad choices. He was a monster who helped destroy hundreds of lives, including those of the people who loved him most. I donated the insurance money from Marcus's death to organizations that help trafficking survivors. It felt like the only way to honor his memory by helping the kind of people he died trying to save, even though he didn't know it at the time. The cabin in Pine Ridge has been demolished. Where it once stood, there's now a small memorial garden with 17 stone markers, one for each victim whose remains were recovered. I visit sometimes, when I need to remember that truth is worth fighting for, no matter how painful it is to face. My mother's grave now has a new headstone that tells the truth. Rebecca Henderson, beloved mother, she died fighting for justice. Sometimes the most heroic thing you can do is refuse to stay silent, even when speaking up costs you everything. If this story resonated with you, please give it a thumbs up and share it with someone who might need to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe for more real stories that prove justice, though sometimes delayed, is never truly denied. Your engagement helps ensure these important stories reach the people who need to hear them most. Leave a comment below if you've ever had to fight for truth in your own life. I read every single one.